Hello, my name is Barbara Nussbaumer Streit, and I'm co-director of Cochrane Austria. I also led Working Group 3 within the Cost FBRES action for the past years. And I'm very happy to present you the results of our recent scoping review. I will share my screen now with you. I hope you can see it. And well, let's get started. So the topic of our scoping review was on resource use during the systematic review production. I'm pretty sure you have already heard about the systematic review dilemma. So on the one hand side, systematic reviews are considered the most reliable evidence synthesis if they're well conducted. They can support evidence-based clinical and health policy decision-making, and they are also essential in primary research. On the other hand, the production of a systematic review is very resource intensive. It can take up to 2 years to complete a systematic review. And then systematic reviews often do not meet the time-sensitive needs of decision makers, and they can keep primary researchers from evidence-based research. So we wanted to find out where the largest gain in improving efficiency might be possible, and we wanted to map the resource use of different systematic review steps. In addition, we wanted to know the reasons why certain steps of the review process are resource intensive in order to identify suitable methods to address them. Specifically, our key questions were: how many resources do different steps of the systematic review production consume? And what are the reasons why some steps of the systematic review production are resource intensive? As I already said, this scoping review was embedded within the cost action FBRES, which stands for evidence-based research. And we did this work within Working Group 3. The whole cost action is funded by the European Union, and 23 team members actively contributed to this work. So concerning our methods, we conducted a scoping review. We had an information specialist in our team, and she searched multiple databases and also complemented this by citation-based and gray literature searching. We employed dual and independent screenings of the identified records at title abstract level as well as full text level, and we also did data extraction dually and independently. We defined our methods in a protocol before we started with our scoping review. In case you're interested in our pre-specified methods, you can find our protocol on the Open Science Framework if you follow this link. We looked at several steps of the systematic review process, and we used a publication from Zafnat et al. To formulate these steps. We also added 3 additional steps that we considered important. One was administration project management. Another one was critical appraisal of included studies. And one was certainty of evidence assessment. So what did we find out? Overall, our search found nearly 4,000 records, and after screening them and checking whether they fulfill our inclusion criteria or not, we included 34 studies. Most of these studies provided evidence for our first key question. 32 studies reported on the resource use of different steps of the systematic review production or on the complete process of systematic review production, and most of them reported the resource time. 3 studies compared resource use across all steps of the review process, 11 on literature search, 7 on title abstract screening, 7 on data extraction, 4 studies reported resource use on full text screening, 4 on critical appraisal, and 1 on obtaining full text. For key question 2, 4 studies contributed evidence, and they reported reasons why steps of the systematic review production are resource intensive. So how many resources do different steps of the systematic review production consume? We extracted a lot of detailed data in large tables that you can have a look at if you take a look at our publication. I gave here just a brief overview because otherwise I think it's too much for a presentation. But just to give you a brief overview, the mean time to complete a systematic review, for example, ranged between 881 and 1,312 hours. The literature search process ranged from 8 to 22 hours. And full text screening, for example, took 4.3 to 5 minutes per full text. Critical appraisal that depended a little bit on the tool that was used. The Cochrane Risk of Bias tool 1.0 took about 21 minutes per study, and Robbins I about 37 minutes per study. So our main findings on resource use showed that project management and coordination require the largest proportion of systematic review production time. Across all the systematic review production steps, study selection, data extraction, and critical appraisal seem to be very resource intensive, while on the other hand, protocol development, literature search, and study retrieval take little time. What are the reasons why some steps of the systematic review production are resource intensive? Well, reasons that we identified were lack of experience and domain knowledge, lack of collaborative and systematic review tailored software, doing steps manually instead of using supportive software, and lack of good communication and management of the systematic review process. Our study also had some limitations that I want to mention. We focused only on the resource use, not on the validity of the methods or tools. But we are currently conducting a follow-up scoping review. Lisa Affengruber will present you preliminary results in a few minutes. And in this scoping review, the focus is more on validity of methods and tools. So we did not assess the risk of bias of the included studies. Instead, we described the methodological approach of the included studies. We limited the inclusion criteria to studies published from 2009 onwards. We might have missed all the studies reporting resource use, and the included studies are heterogeneous. Specific time estimates must be interpreted with caution. So what's our conclusion? Well, resource use during the systematic review production varies widely. It depends on the topic, the team, the scope of the review, and it cannot be generalized to a systematic review per se, but it can be a guide. And project management and administration seem to be very time consuming and should be more in focus when developing or using tools and methods to make the systematic review production process more efficient. So based on our results, tools to support organization and collaboration throughout the project, as well as tools to speed up study selection, data extraction, and critical appraisal are most needed. Ideally, one tool for all steps throughout the whole systematic review production process, or tools that are compatible with one another. If you are interested in more details on our scoping review in the large tables that I mentioned, here you can see the link to our published manuscript. And I would also like to thank all the co-authors that actively contributed to this work. As you can see, it's really a large team, and it was great doing the scoping review with them. So thank you to the team, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Thank you. Bye-bye.